What's up? My name is Ken Dumbo, the MC with the sauce. Don't forget to subscribe to J-Cool.
Continues to rise, while the government's recruitment process gets more and more exclusive and limited to certain special names. With the UPND government, it is crisis after crisis. Poverty levels have increased, reversing all the gains of the last 30 years of progressive growth. The World Bank currently reports Zambian poverty levels at 65%, with the figure projected to increase this year and the year after. Ladies and gentlemen, we in the Citizens First reject this spirit of poverty that has come with the outgoing UPND regime. Corruption has hit record high in the last 3 years. Yet only those with from the previous regime are arrested for corruption. The increase in corruption can be attributed to greed and sheer lack of care for the welfare of Zambians by those in government today. Police heavy-handedness and total disregard for the Constitution and the law of Zambia is the order of the day in many government institutions, including in procurement and at the Electoral Commission of Zambia. Clearly, we are enduring unimaginable sufferings, the result of poor policy decisions. And this is unacceptable. So yes, we are suffering unimaginable causes, the result of poor policy decisions driven by corruption, greed, and absolute disregard for the welfare of ordinary Zambians. Fellow Zambians, you and I are not just in a battle of political power. We are in a fight for existential survival and the preservation of the values of justice, fairness, and accountability. We must wrestle and save the soul of our nation, which is under severe threat from things never seen or experienced before in the history of our country. When the UPND government took over power in 2021, the economy had showed signs of recovery, driven by good performance in the external sector, broader tax reforms, including the introduction of mineral royalties, and the easing of COVID-19 related trade restrictions. These factors stimulated employment opportunities, particularly in the mining sector, and bolstered government revenues. Zambia achieved a 4.6% GDP growth rate in 2021. Since then, Zambia's economic growth has sharply and drastically declined from 4.7% in 2022 to 2.7% in 2023, and further to 1.9% in 2024. After 3.5 years of blaming the past administration for their total inability to run a government, it is evident that the outgoing government lacks both the capacity and the political will to address the concerns of the Zambian people, as their primary focus for getting into government seems to be self-enrichment through corrupt practices. As your government in waiting, allow me now to provide an analysis of the damage being occasioned to our economy across various sectors. Mineral resources. Zambia continues to lose its finite mineral resources without the Zambian people getting a fair share of the wealth generated by their country's natural resources. Only a select few of those walking the corridors of power and those oiling those walking the corridors of power are benefiting. Zambia's mineral wealth of precious metals such as copper, sugilite, gold, and gemstones have the potential to significantly improve the lives of individuals in their communities by creating jobs, boosting local economies, and fostering sustainable development with a responsible government. Currently, our local small-scale miners are no longer engaged in mining, as the Ministry of Mines, under the direction of the minister, is giving licenses to foreigners in preference to Zambians. The case of Muchinga right now and northwestern provinces. We are aware that Kalengwa mine shares are owned by people close to State House who have secured shares through threats. The civil servants in the Ministry of Mines have been made irrelevant as the minister gives licenses and reinstates licenses against the recommendation of the Technical Advisory Group. We are watching. Promises to resolve issues at Mopani Copper Mines and Konkola Copper Mines have not been fulfilled. Furthermore, removal of mineral royalty taxes is costing the country billions of kwachas, with reports indicating losses of over $3 billion in tax evasion and tax holidays. The mining sector lacks a coherent policy, including measures for managing the environment, resulting in environmental degradation, poor working conditions, and inadequate compensation for affected communities are common occurrences. After August 2026, the Citizens First government will prioritize the mining sector for growing the economy and job creation for our youth, and establish a clear framework for the management of precious metals and other natural resources to promote small-scale mining for Zambians. We will provide an enabling environment for our people to own big mines and to partner with foreign investors who genuinely want to be in a win-win partnership with Zambia. The Citizens First shall harness our vast mineral resources to create pathways to wealth and prosperity with infrastructure development, support small businesses, create jobs, and ultimately contribute to the overall well-being of citizens in Zambia. While the UPND government has made Zambians to work in the mines with slave conditions, under the Citizens First, the mines will work for the Zambians. Thank you very much. The energy sector. Zambia is in the dark. The energy sector under the UPND government is a complete mess, riddled with unbridled corruption. Zambia is facing fuel shortages, and we have looming catastrophic shortages which will bring Zambia to a halt if this outgoing government continues to play games and not take people's lives and survival seriously. How can the entire country have a fuel stock pipeline of 13 days, while the government, in their hallmark style of lie and blame, are quick to pass the blame of the ongoing fuel shortage in Zambia to the civil unrest in Mozambique? The truth lies elsewhere. When this outgoing UPND government assumed office, it decided to convert the Tazama pipeline into an open access carrier for fuel from Tanzania. Under this arrangement, Agrofuel, a company owned by a known associate of the top UPND leadership, was contracted to clean the pipeline, a job paid for by the Zambian government. We are aware that following a routine fuel price announcement by the Energy Regulation Board, ERB, as the case has been since UPND took over power, Agrofuel Investment Limited submitted a complaint, not to the ERB, as the case should be, but directly to the Ministry of Energy, claiming colossal amounts of dollars in exchange rate losses. Despite other oil marketing companies facing similar circumstances, the Ministry of Energy prioritized Agrofuel's claim. After an internal review with the UPND Solicitor General's opinions, as we have now been accustomed to, the ministry compensated Agrofuel. However, instead of using treasury funds to make this payment, the Ministry of Energy entered into an agreement granting Agrofuel exclusive use of the Tazama pipeline for 3 years. As a result, Agrofuel now controls more than 75% of the pipeline's capacity, and transporting fuel through the pipeline costs less than $80 per metric ton, making it nearly impossible for other oil marketing companies to compete. The International Monetary Fund came and called out this corruption and asked government to enforce open access to the pipeline. But this has not been done, hence making fuel importation unviable with exorbitant road transport costs. This monopolistic arrangement and greed have severely disrupted the fuel supply chain, created inefficiencies, and contributed to the ongoing fuel shortages. Electricity. We all know for real that civilization, industrialization, and creation of markets can only take place when one has electricity. We all know that people's productivity is innately linked to electricity. Zambia Revenue Authority can only mobilize resources from companies when companies have electricity and are performing. The growth of the economy is linked to power. Zambia's growth in the last year shrunk as the small and medium businesses closed down due to lack of electricity. While in opposition, the UPND often criticized the PF government for using climate change as an excuse for power outages, which lasted up to 10 hours. We all remember how Dubai was cited as an example to show that power supply can be available even with persistent climate changes. The infamous but dysfunctional X minus Y formula, you remember it? Yes. For reducing fuel costs and having electricity throughout the day and every day is vividly in our minds. People of Zambia, we are in trouble. Instead of offering tangible solutions, the UPND leadership casually mocks the citizens to seek alternative power sources, solutions that most Zambians cannot afford. This failure has deepened poverty across the nation and crippled local industries. We wish to caution the outgoing UPND leadership to stop fronting 2 other companies that we will not mention here, that we know have been lobbying ZESCO and the ERB for exclusive rights to supply power to the DRC through the CEC interconnector in the DRC, as seen with the Tazama pipeline. We are aware that the owners of the 2 companies in question are close allies of the UPND top leadership and have been leveraging this proximity to pressure ERB and ZESCO into compliance. As citizens first, We call on the ERB board to remain steadfast, professional, and impartial in the face of such blatant intimidation. The board must prioritize the interests of the Zambian people over the greed of a few well-connected individuals. We also remind all public officers, ministers, civil servants, and state house aides not to allow themselves to be used by those in power and their close allies while causing untold suffering on the people of Zambia. I would like to sound a timely warning that when we take over, the long arm of the law will catch up with you. Yes. So please, stay clear of corruption and making decisions which are inimical to your core of public service and duty. The Citizens First has placed energy at the center of human development and all elements of the country's growth and development. In the petroleum sector, we shall remove all barriers to unlimited supply and access and shall invest in a broader and open access pipeline. We shall diversify the sources of electricity at no cost to the citizens. A call for national unity. Fellow citizens, Zambia is a divided nation. The UPND leadership has made the country to be very divided across political, tribes, and regional lines. These divisions permeate every class of society and all processes of government and governance, awarding of government contracts for goods and services, and public service recruitments. We wish to remind the UPND leadership, and especially His Excellency the President, that we are a country of one people with a united responsibility to ensure the well-being of each and every Zambian with equitable access of the whole of Zambia to public service jobs and the country's resources. Members of the press, we have over 400 civil servants who have been removed from their positions and placed in holding roles while receiving salaries and allowances. I challenge Cabinet Office through the government spokesperson to release the names of all the 400 persons or civil servants in holding roles so that the country can judge by itself as to what this government is doing. I further invite them to release the names of their replacements who are also receiving salaries and allowances. If the government does not release the names, Citizens First shall start releasing the names of those taken to Cabinet Office and their replacements. Yes. And we shall also release the CVs of both groups so that the people of Zambia can judge. And further see the reason for non-performance of government's programs and our economy. Every week we shall release 20 names of each group. Foreign service deployments are not exempt, as diplomatic positions are rewarded to individuals based on political loyalty and affiliations rather than on merit, qualifications, or expertise. The recent record of certain diplomats is reflective of poor choices in the selection process. The recent recall of certain diplomats is reflective of poor choices in the selection process. Although erring heads of missions and their deputies that are closest to powers that are being shielded and protected, with some being transferred to other missions, as the case is in America. Such appointments have rendered our foreign policy to demonstrate amateurish performance and without a defined position. And I speak with authority. I'm a former foreign minister myself. Historically, Zambia maintained a non-aligned foreign policy, fostering diplomatic flexibility and regional solidarity, and only taking partisan positions in situations of evident dire human rights abuses. And I've got ambassadors who are ambassadors here. They are with us. Ambassador Kasesebota was in New York as our permanent representative. Ambassador Mary Zambezi was in Kenya as our High Commissioner there. We have got Ambassador Joyce there. She was in Nigeria. So we are not talking from without. We're not talking from without. Today we are flip-flopping and without justification. Today Zambia does not even have the capacity to act as a neutral mediator or interlocutor in SADC and the African Union debates. We used to do this during our time. Revenue collection. Government's revenue collection through the Zambia Revenue Authority has consistently failed to meet its revenue targets ever since the UPND government introduced tax incentives for mining firms. To partially meet last year's targets, ZRA adopted a very controversial measure that not only disrupted businesses, but also undermined confidence in the country's tax administration system. The business community has a lot of legitimate complaints against ZRA. One contentious issue was ZRA's refusal to issue tax clearance certificates to any business entity with outstanding liabilities, regardless of whether those liabilities had been verified. This decision caused widespread disruptions, as many businesses were unable to receive payments from entities requiring tax clearing certificates for payment processing. One of the most contentious strategies and complaint was ZRA's refusal to issue tax clearance certificates to any business entity with those outstanding liabilities. Now, you've got ZESCO on the other hand. You've got the famine which has hit our country on the other hand. Then now you've got Tubikepuna ZRA on the other hand to stifle these small businesses. It's terrible. And council levy, MCC. ZRA needs to foster transparency and rebuild public trust. And the citizens first request the ZRA to produce and publish a detailed report on revenue collections versus targets across all tax categories. This would enable the nation to assess the authority's performance objectively and hold it accountable for its actions. The central bank. The tax concessions that the outgoing government has provided to the mining sector has significantly impacted the nation, to the extent that the central bank has struggled to stabilize macroeconomic fundamentals, resulting in persistent high inflation and a highly volatile exchange rate market. These challenges have significantly increased the cost of doing business in Zambia and created widespread economic uncertainty. We vividly recall the promise made by this administration: as soon as we are sworn in by 10 hours, by 14 hours, the kwacha will appreciate against the dollar. When this government assumed office on the 24th of August 2021, the exchange rate stood at 16 kwacha to $1. Today, it has escalated to 28 kwacha to $1, a stark indication of failed monetary policy and unfulfilled promises. The central bank must be allowed to operate independently, free from political interference, in order to implement effective policies that stabilize the economy and restore confidence in Zambia's monetary system. Without bold and decisive leadership, the current trajectory will continue to deepen the current economic crisis. Citizens first in government will ensure an equitable tax system that prioritizes the interest of the nation and its citizens. Separation of powers and the three arms of government. Countrymen and women. The three arms of government meant to operate independently while collectively serving the people of Zambia are now being increasingly controlled, remotely so, by State House. One glaring example of interference is the consistent denial of bail pending appeal for the so-called political prisoners. This appears to be the result of directives from those in power, an alarming trend that not only erodes judicial independence, but will ultimately come back to haunt this administration once they're out of power. Yes. Allow those who think they can win these cases to appeal and allow them to come out while they are fighting for their... This used to happen to you when you were in opposition. They allowed you to still appeal and you came out, but now you want to incarcerate your colleagues, keep them in there under the pretext that they will regroup when we take them out of these. It's a constitutional right granted to them. The retabling of cases in the Constitutional Court by the outgoing UPND administration and the flip-flop judgments are eroding the confidence of citizens in the judiciary. Today, we have the case of ministers' stay beyond resolution of Parliament taken back to the Concourt, when the Concourt already ruled that a minister must be a member of Parliament. With Parliament in dissolution, there are no members of Parliament to be ministers. Simple. And you recall me, I even paid back the money. Oh, yes. When we were told to pay back as ministers. I was the first one to do that. Why do they want to remain in office when they should be campaigning? They want to use government resources. They want to do all those things. These are the very things they were against when the UPND, when the PF was in power. Chiwamila Kuluma Mbuzi Atumaloza. Coming to the legislature, Parliament's dysfunction has reached unprecedented and alarming levels. For the first time in the nation's history, 2 to 3 consecutive sittings have failed to meet the minimum quorum of 59 members on a weekly basis. Very sad. The government and the church relations. Ladies and gentlemen, Zambia is a Christian nation, and the church plays a critical function in complementing government's efforts of service delivery and being a vanguard voice for the voiceless poor. The government must stop fighting the church and instead welcome the important role that the church plays in promoting unity and providing services to the last mile where government fails to reach. It has become a disturbing trend that the clergy who express differing views are maligned, called by police, and made to have their sermons and homilies re-explained and retracted. Shame. Rampant corruption. It's scandals after scandals under this outgoing regime. Grand corruption and self-enrichment are now buzzwords that are synonymous with the UPND administration. The executive's overreach stretches into procurement processes across ministries and government agencies to the extent that the UPND Secretariat has reportedly taken over the micromanagement of contracts as a means of rewarding its supporters. When tenders are floated and awarded by the appropriate committees, it is alleged that the Secretariat allegedly reviews the ownership of bidding companies. If the owners do not bear the right names, right connections, the tender is cancelled and replaced with direct bidding, an opaque and corruption-prone process that disregards transparency and merit, giving away sources of revenue collection for the government. One of government's fundamental roles is that of collecting financial resources on behalf of Zambians and redistributing these resources to promote the socio-economic well-being of citizens and growth and development of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the government has given away your national assets to foreigners and private individuals. The Lusaka and Dollar Road toll gates have been given to foreigners to collect money and get paid before they even start working on the Lusaka and Dollar dual carriageway. Last year alone, Zambia raised almost 3 billion kwacha from the toll gates. Today, that source of revenue is gone. We appreciate the public-private partnership arrangement, but these should be done with transparency and goodwill for the country. Who shows us how much money we are raising and paying back? Who puts financial control measures? Can the Auditor General's office go and audit these entities? These are critical questions which Zambians need answers to. I challenge the outgoing UPND government to reveal to us the contents of the PP contracts on the toll gates, including the one for Solwezi and Kasumbalesa. I further challenge them to make public key elements of the Zambia-Tanzania railway line concession. Procurement of 159 ambulances. The scandal at the center of the purchase of 156 ambulances costing $13 million under the Constituency Development Fund, CDF, raises serious concerns about public processes, financial management, and transparency. The Public Accounts Committee flagged the procurement as highly irregular, noting that standard procedures were bypassed. Instead of engaging official franchise holders like Toyota Zambia or Nissan Sifao, the Ministry of Local Government awarded contracts to suppliers lacking direct affiliations with manufacturers. Contracts signed in 2023 stipulated a delivery timeline of 16 to 20 weeks, with all ambulances expected by June 2024. So far, only 11 ambulances have been delivered. They are fighting corruption. We expect that the Anti-Corruption Commission and the Drug Enforcement Commission will do their work and have those involved in this deal arrested. Then there's also the 6.8 million procurement scandal. An audit by the Global Fund uncovered significant flaws in the Ministry of Health's handling of a 13.4 million grant for HIV/AIDS prevention. The audit highlighted conflicts of interest and procedural irregularities, particularly involving one former PS, but has not been taken to court to clear these allegations. Lawsuit over malicious prosecution. Countrymen and women. UPND members filed a 14 million kwacha lawsuit against the Attorney General, seeking compensation for alleged false imprisonment and malicious prosecution dating back to 2016. They claimed they were unlawfully arrested and detained due to their affiliation with the then opposition party UPND. And the money was paid through UPND-aligned law firms. This kind of plunder will have consequences. after August 2026. Awarding contracts to newly established companies. In 2022, the Food Reserve Agency awarded a lucrative contract for maize sales totaling 7,258 metric tons and valued at 29,033,240 kwacha to Gordon Manila Investments Limited. Notably, this company was incorporated on June 23, 2022 and began trading with the FRA the very next day. This trend has continued, including in the case of the scandal in the Ministry of Defense, which was reported by the Financial Intelligence Center involving a Kenyan firm. Ladies and gentlemen, the list is endless. It's very sad. As I end, let me pay special recognition to the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights, Ms. Irene Khan, who is in the country on a fact-finding mission regarding many blatant human rights abuses perpetrated by this repressive outgoing administration. We appreciate her busy schedule in the country, and we hope she would have time to engage some political opposition leaders and visit political prisoners currently in detention. It's good for, I would recommend she goes and visits Comrade GBM in Mwembeshi. It's not far from here. She goes and sees how GBM is still being detained under very deteriorating health situations. She should go and see how colleagues are being kept in Chimbokaela, how colleagues are being kept in the various prison cells. And not only these ones who are known, but even those who are not known, they should take time to go and visit them and appreciate the real situation. Don't listen to those ones telling you in the boardroom, telling you and giving you graphs how they have been managing these issues. It's total lies. So we would appreciate if she did that. Ladies and gentlemen, it is evident that we are breeding tyranny before our very own eyes in Zambia. A situation that Zambia has never been before. This tyranny must be stopped. And the momentum to stop this tyranny starts right here, right now. Yes. It is time for you and I to reclaim our sovereignty and take a stand against this abuse of power. Our resources, our democracy, and our future must not be sacrificed for the benefit of a few. Zambia nina haya luna. Yeah. That's right, right? Yeah. Zambia njisi chesu. Aha. Zambia chalo chesu. The time to act for all of us to come together is now. And 2026, we need to show the UPND the exit door. Thank you, and may God bless all of you.
I want to say thank you for that wonderful, elaborate, detailed and profound speech. And I believe as our media are here, we know that it is loud and clear. And we also want to say thank you that you've taken the time to ensure that this profound speech is being aired. Thank you. At this time, I'll allow the media to ask questions. So please make them brief. Yes.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Kalaba. Dr. Kalaba.
Afternoon, how are you?
I'm good. My question is based on...
where are you from?
I'm identified as Dr. Edwin, and I'm representing
Who?
Kumwesu. My question is based on ZRA. The report that they gave last year showed that they collected revenue above their target. That is according to them. And then amidst the challenges that we're facing in the economy, road shedding, cost of living, and many others, but they say they collected above the target revenue. And then to add to that, this year, ZRA has again introduced more tax, and these are affecting, or these taxes that they have introduced are mainly going to the common citizens. You need to have a TPN for you to open a mobile money. So they have introduced more taxes, whereas they are saying they collected more.
It's an irony, right?
So my question, besides these claims that ZRA is making and new taxes they're introducing, what's really happening to the economy? And is this revenue collection really there, or is just on paper to sugarcoat? Because we're not seeing it as a citizen.
Please, can we make them brief?
I didn't explain.
Yeah, it was right.
Any?
There's nothing. Thank you very much. I think you have even answered the question yourself. ZRA alleged last year that they had recouped more than their targets. If you have recouped more than your targets, why would you want again to begin taxing your citizens more by introducing new taxes? It's not adding up. So it is not true, sir. Me, I doubt that, and I think our colleagues here also doubt that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's cosmetic.
It's cosmetic, eh?
Very cosmetic.
So it's cosmetic. It's not real that really they did have their targets. Why would you even... You are giving incentives to foreigners doing our mines in this country. You have given them tax holidays. You have reduced the mineral royalty tax that they are paying from 6% to 3%. Why are you failing to give leverage or to give an incentive to people who are just selling, who are doing Airtel mobile money? What is difficult by just allowing your own Zambians to benefit a little? You are willing to give incentives to outsiders, but you have problems to give incentives to your own people. And you are saying you are going to win with a landslide next year. The two don't match. How can you win with a landslide next year when, one, people don't have electricity in their homes, two, the cost of living is always going up, three, our youths who are promised jobs are not getting their jobs, four, you keep on dividing us instead of bringing us together with your politics. So all these factors are going to see the UPND out. We are tired. We are tired of their lies. Luvata UPND izwe fateni. Yeah.
Any?
Yeah.
Any question?
Any question? Okay, yes, sir. Your name? Where you coming from? The media house?
I'm Barnabas Sura from Erosion. So basically, my question, Mr. President, I wanted to get your comment on the awarding of the ballot paper. So basically, I want to get your comment on the awarding of the contract by the ECZ to Dubai-based company, the ballot papers in 4.6. They have cancelled the tender for the South African firm, and that was now the second time they are cancelling that tender and awarding it to a Dubai-based company. Another question is, The chief government spokesperson yesterday, Mr. Cornelius, accused the opposition of tarnishing Zambia's image by talking about human rights abuse, which then they claim that they are not there. So do you think that it is correct to say that the opposition in Zambia, they are trying to tarnish the government in terms of human rights abuse? Thank you.
If there is a party that tarnished Zambia's image abroad, it's the UPND. If there is a party that was careless with protecting this country's beauty, with protecting the prospects of this country, it was the UPND. Yes. They have no business to talk about people who are talking about them in relation to international projection. Yes. They have no business. I was foreign minister, and I can tell you that I was having every day to host diplomats from outside Zambia who came asking about their statements, except that we were very good in our diplomatic endeavors ourselves. So we used to manage them. They were constantly writing to SADC, constantly going to the African Union, constantly going to UN, constantly saying all kinds of things about how Zambia was bad and how Zambia was going to be a paradise if they took over. Now, look at how they are treating us today. Look at how they are treating us today. You speak boldly, you will have to be arrested. The police will have to call you. We are not even afraid of being arrested, by the way. If our forefathers were afraid of being arrested, we would not even have gotten this independence. My father, myself, was a freedom fighter. So I carry the blood of freedom fighters of this nation. And therefore, if they think they will use the police to intimidate us and slap seditious charges on us, it's okay for now. It's okay for now. But we are going to wither that for the sake of the Zambian people. We will do it on your behalf. And as citizens first, we are going to carry your interests with a lot of sincerity and brevity. So don't listen to them telling you that story. And if I were the chief government spokesperson, I would even feel ashamed to talk about such a thing. Go and tell him that your brother Harry says you should feel ashamed to talk about human rights yourself, because we are suffering in this country. The other issue you raised was the issue of the Electoral Commission of Zambia and cancelling of those ballot paper. I mean, the contract with the South African firm. We as CF are studying that report. And we are studying that, and we'll be having a press briefing soon, strictly to concentrate on that. Because the Electoral Commission of Zambia must be doing things in the interests of the Zambian people. And we, as citizens first, our role is to check. And we are sniffing hard to understand what's happening in government circles. And if we find anything not right, we'll expose it. So we are studying that report, and we'll soon be coming back to you, Zambian people, to inform you what position we are taking as citizens first on what ECZ is doing. Thank you so much.
At this moment, we stand still for the national.
Thanks for tuning in to JQ News. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest updates on tech, politics, and everything in between. Until next time, stay cool.